Hi, it's Paul Sakis, Good News Planet. We're here at the Essex House for a wonderful occasion, the 81st birthday of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And Gandon Thurman is the Executive Director, CEO. You're overseeing the Tibet House.
That's correct. Tibet House U.S.
Okay, did I get the
title? One of the organizers of the event, along with the Tibet Fund and Gaia Holistic and Orphans Worldwide.
Okay, and this is all magnificent. We're so excited to be here because thanks for inviting us. We're believers in the Dalai Lama and are in the Kati, if I say it right.
Kata.
Kata, okay. And it's an offering. And in essence, the Dalai Lama continues to do offerings and in a compassionate, loving way. I interviewed your father in the Dalai Lama's chair at the Tibet House bunch, maybe 10, 15 years ago.
All right.
And I've never wavered, and our broadcast has always supported the good things that the Tibet House is doing. Tell us about the Tibet House.
Thank you. Well, Tibet House was an organization founded in 1987 at the request of His Holiness by a number of people who benefited greatly from Tibetan culture and their studies of it, and had a concern and care for the Tibetan people at this very difficult time in their history since 1950 and the invasion by China. And basically the purpose of Tibet House, and there are other Tibet houses in different countries around the world, is to preserve, present, and promote Tibetan culture and awareness of Tibetan culture, and specifically those aspects of the culture that are germane to the contemporary life. So, for example, their tradition of peacemaking and nonviolence, of course, is one very excellent element of Tibetan culture. Their medicine, their art, their literature, their philosophy, comparative religion, these types of things. They have a lot to offer in these areas. Even modern neuroscientists, for example, study the brains of Tibetan meditators because they're qualitatively different, apparently, than the brains of people who don't perhaps spend as much time working on their mental faculties the way that the Tibetans do.
Well, they're calm, and they spend time being calm, I believe. And
well, it's a process. It's a process.
In a meditative way.
It's as I understand it, it's a process of slowly taming the mind. You know, there's the typical. You've seen perhaps in the Japanese tradition they have these, in Chinese tradition they have these ox herding pictures, and at first the person is dealing with this wild, untamed animal, the ox, and by the end, and slowly, progressively, it gets the animal under control, and by the end is able to yoke it and use it to plow fields and these types of things. And it's a metaphor for the struggle, the fight to control the mind, which is considered essential in the Buddhist tradition, since the Buddhist tradition essentially is very pragmatic and focuses on perfecting those faculties and abilities which we all have that we can use to improve our lot and the lot of our friends and families and others around the world, make the world happier rather than more miserable.
And I was fortunate in the early 80s to do the Brain Series, to work on the Brain Series for Channel 13.
Sure.
And we learned how important a calm way of life, because when you're stressed, you actually put adrenaline from your brain into your body, into your vein.
There's a whole cascade effect, a number of cascade effects.
It's a killer.
I've done a number of conferences that look at researching the health effects of advanced meditation, and the advantages of a calm mind are numerous, but they're looking specifically, these days our Western science, of course, looks at quantifiable things we can measure. And there are quite a few, that stress being a very major one, of course, because stress tends to cascade into all kinds of negative effects. It puts free radicals into the body. It creates cytokines. As a whole, I'm not an expert in these matters, but studied enough of them to know that the mind is a very, very key, provides very key leverage over the body and the function of the body. And so, yeah, there's the health effects of meditation are being better understood every day.
Sorry for our audience, is that that they pay attention to this, what you're speaking about. And I happen to know that you have many classes and courses at the Tibet House. I've attended lectures there and so on. What are some of the kinds of things that people can attend and become involved in?
Well, we have meditations, and we have a lot of classes typically focused on Tibet's main export, their main intellectual property, which is their very, very deep knowledge of developed through their Buddhist studies and practices and interests. They refined Buddhism pretty much without wars. Because they're were isolated up in the mountains of the Himalayas. It was hard for people to invade them, and they used this time to really work on what my father's termed the inner sciences, the science of the mind and controlling the mind and keeping it calm and learning reason and logic and these types of things. So as, again, all of this not just for its own sake and not just for health benefits, but also for the ability to make better rather than worse choices in order to get the things that we want in life and avoid those things that we don't.
2 last quick questions. Thank
Sure.
you so much. What is good news for you?
What is good news for me?
Any aspect of your life.
Any number of things is good news for me. I'm not even sure what to tell you. I take pleasure in a great many things. The successes of my friends, my own accomplishments, generally the happiness and well-being of the people around me. I tend to be very sensitive to my environment. So when people are all right around me, it's a good time.
All right, last question. We were very involved, I mentioned earlier, with the International Day of Peace, September 21st, and I've asked thousands of people, what does peace mean to them? So,
well, peace is where we, as the foundation of our creative efforts. It's the foundation of where civilization is built. There's an erroneous theory that war is how civilizations are built, and it's not the case. Science, arts, knowledge, all these things derive from peace and order and some kind of like reasonable state for people. All creativity comes from that. And so peace is the foundation of everything good we experience in our lives and in our world.
Love it. The website is?
Tibethouse.us.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.